I worked at the old hospital in my small town. This was last month. I was an orderly, doing late shifts to support my family and pay off my student debt. I always took my job seriously. I liked the quiet, empty hallways. It felt peaceful at night. But everything changed. One night around midnight, I heard footsteps echo down the hallway. I thought it was just a nurse making rounds. I looked, but nobody was there. A chill ran down my spine, but I pushed it away. I kept pushing my cart of supplies. Still, I felt like someone was watching me. My heart raced as I tried to do my job. The days passed, those footsteps became louder each night. Along with them, I heard laughter and soft crying. I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but I wasn't sure. The other staff members gave me uneasy looks when I mentioned the sounds. Their eyes darted around like they were waiting for something. I asked an old nurse about it one night. Her face was pale, and she shook her head. "Just ignore it," she said quietly. I could tell she knew something I didn't. One evening, the machines started acting weird. They beeped when I was nowhere near them. Flickering lights flashed in empty rooms. I felt my breath quicken as I walked past the old, closed wing of the hospital. I knew about the tragedies that happened there. I never liked talking about it. It felt wrong. Then one night, it went completely silent. The footsteps stopped. The heavy silence around me was suffocating. I was scared but tried to convince myself that everything was fine. I asked the head nurse if she heard anything that month. Her eyes widened in fear. "You shouldn't ask those kinds of questions," she said sharply. Maybe she knew more than I did. That night, I heard a soft voice from the darkness of the old wing. It was almost a whisper. I turned to look, but there was nothing. Just a dark corridor. I still wonder if it was real. I couldn't explain what I felt. Every night I worked late, the footsteps haunted me. I continued my shifts, but the unease grew. I was always on edge. I pushed my cart down the hallway, the sound of my wheels echoing. I wanted to shake off the fear, but it clung to me. Then one night, I dismissed it all. I convinced myself I was just tired. But as I reached a corner, I swore I heard my name whispered softly from the darkness behind me. I froze, my heart racing. I turned slowly, but there was nothing there. Just the lingering chill of the empty hallway. I rushed out of there that night. I still work late shifts, but every sound makes me jump. The footsteps follow me in my mind, and I can't shake them. I don't know what happened, but I still hear them echoing in the halls. I returned to the hospital a few days later, mind still reeling from those unsettling nights. I needed to make money and keep everything normal, but I felt the weight of dread pulling at me. As I walked through the front doors, the scent of antiseptic and stale air washed over me. Familiar, yet now tainted with fear. During my shift, I tried to focus on my tasks. I stocked supplies in patient rooms, and my thoughts wandered to the old wing. Something about that place kept tugging at me. I felt a pull, as if it needed to be explored. Maybe I'd find answers. By the time midnight rolled around, I was in the supply room. The fluorescent lights flickered, and the humming of machines in the distance became a backdrop to my racing thoughts. My hands fumbled as I organized the boxes, and then footsteps. This time, they were right outside the door. I paused, my heart beating loud in my chest. I listened carefully. The footsteps shuffled slowly, almost deliberate. I edged closer to the door, holding my breath. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice barely breaking the silence. Nothing. That I opened the door slowly, peeking into the dim hallway. My heart sank as the corridor stood empty. Why did I think I'd see someone? I shook my head, pushing past the fear, when I noticed it. A door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar. It had been locked before. I was certain of that. A burst of curiosity mixed with dread surged through me. I walked toward it, my footsteps soft against the tile floor. As I approached, the shadows seemed to deepen, thickening around me. The memory of laughter mixed with cries echoed in my mind, pushing me forward. I reached for the door handle, steeling myself. What would I find? I took a breath and pulled it open. Inside was barely illuminated by a single flickering bulb. The room was filled with dust, forgotten equipment, and old charts piled high. It felt like stepping back in time. Then, in the corner, something caught my eye. A framed photograph lay on the floor. I picked it up and squinted through the dust. The smiling faces of a group of nurses stared back at me. I recognized some of their uniforms. They were from decades ago, but one woman stood out. Something in her eyes felt familiar. Then it hit me. I'd seen her before. In the hallway mirrors. She was the one whose laughter I heard. A chill gripped my spine as the reality of it struck me. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and I felt a rush of air sweep past me. I dropped the photo, and as it hit the ground, the whispers returned my name echoing, calling. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut. I was trapped. Panic surged within me, drowning out everything else. I pounded on the door, screaming for help, but all that answered was the darkness that surrounded me. And then everything went quiet. I stood there, paralyzed by the silence. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out all rational thoughts. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with dread. I pressed my body against the door, hoping to budge it free. Nothing. The wood remained immovable. I took a deep breath and forced myself to look around. The flickering light above cast erratic shadows that twisted and turned like restless spirits. Old charts cluttered the desks, some written in handwriting I couldn't decipher. What happened here? Was this where the laughter turned to cries? The whispers returned, more urgent now. Help us! The sound curled around my thoughts, sending chills down my spine. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. I needed to break free. With renewed determination, I slammed my shoulder into the door. The wood groaned but still gave no way. I shifted backward, readying for another try, when I caught sight of something on the floor. It was the photograph laying slightly open, revealing a name on the back, Nurse Elizabeth Connor. The name struck a chord deep within me, but before I could place it, a sudden crash echoed through the room. I jumped, spinning around toward the source. My pulse quickened as I realized it was the nearby window, a frame breaking free as if beckoned by an unseen force. Not here, I thought, the instinct to flee kicking in. I charged toward the window, only to discover that it was stuck. I shoved it with all my strength but it wouldn't budge. The whispers now blended with low cries, pooling into a cacophony that rattled me to the core. I couldn't take it anymore. Desperation clawed at my insides. I turned back to the door, ready for another attempt. As I approached again, the temperature in the room dropped, a bone-chilling breeze wrapping around me. The whispers grew louder, now sounding like a chorus of pleas. Help us, Elizabeth. I froze. The name again. Elizabeth. Was that the woman in the photograph? I had to know more, but I needed to escape first. With a fierce shout, I threw my weight against the door one last time and it creaked open. I stumbled into the corridor, gasping for breath. But I didn't get far. At the end of the hall, emerging from the shadows, stood a figure. The nurse from the photograph. Her face was pale, and the familiar laughter still echoed faintly in the distance. Elizabeth the first breathed, holding my ground. Then, she pointed directly at me. Help me. Just as I processed those words, the lights flickered once more. Everything went dark around me, and I felt a pull, like the very walls were closing in. I stumbled backward, eyes wide with terror. I had no idea how I would help her, but I knew I had to find out what was happening. What was this connection? And why did I feel like I was a part of something bigger than myself? As I struggled to regain my footing, the fear transformed into determination. I couldn't turn back now. I took a step forward into the dark, where the whispers urged me on. I stepped into the void, my heart racing as the darkness swallowed me whole. With every instinct screaming for me to flee, I pushed ahead. The whispers surged, wrapping tightly around my mind. Help us! They were everywhere, the voices amplifying until they filled every nook and cranny of the corridor. That I stumbled forward, attempting to stay grounded, but my feet felt heavy, like I was wading through some unseen force. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being led somewhere, pulled by the spectral nurse whose name echoed in my thoughts. Elizabeth! That I turned a corner, and suddenly the oppressive darkness lightened. I found myself in another room, a wide, sterile space that looked like it had once been an operating theater. The equipment was old, caked in dust, yet I could still feel the presence of life that had once thrived here. A chill spread through me. Had Elizabeth spent her final days here? On the wall hung more photographs, different doctors and nurses standing in white coats, all smiling. I felt an odd sense of familiarity wash over me, but it was the figure in the last frame that drew my attention. Beside the smiling faces stood a younger version of Elizabeth, her eyes sparkling with joy. I reached out to touch the glass, feeling an electric charge surge through me. Why did she need help? I whispered, mostly to myself. Scanning the room, I noticed a cabinet nestled in the corner. It was slightly ajar, and as I approached, the whispers grew softer, almost expectant. Hesitation hung in the air as I pulled it open. Inside lay old medical charts. I rifled through them, desperate to find answers. My fingers skimmed across names and diagnoses, but one stood out. Patient 342 deceased. The chart was marked with a date that twisted the pit of my stomach. It was just a few weeks prior. Elizabeth the first murmured, realizing she was connected to this patient somehow. Before I could think further, something caught my eye on the top sheet, an intricate doodle with a heart and a date written beneath it. I recognized the date, the same date as today. The empty sensation of dread filled me again. Suddenly, a noise echoed from the corridor, urgent footsteps approaching rapidly. My heart jolted in panic. I turned to find the door swinging shut, darkness creeping back in. No, no! I shouted, rushing toward it, but it slammed shut just as I reached the threshold. Trapped again. I pressed my back against the door, willing it to open. The footsteps grew louder outside, echoing around me. I could almost feel someone or something on the other side. For a moment, I considered hiding, but the urge to confront whatever was out there overwhelmed my fear. Then, I remembered the whispers. They were guiding me, urging me to uncover the truth. I braced myself and yelled, "If you're out there, show yourself." Silence fell, heavy and thick. My heart raced wildly, anticipating the worst. That's when I heard it. A soft, mournful voice creaked through the door, "Elizabeth, help us." It was her voice, the same pleading sound that had drawn me in this far. And just like that, the world around me began to flicker, the light dimming once more. I was losing my grip. I had to hold on to what I knew. I had to find Elizabeth. But before I could draw another breath, the door burst open, and I was blinded by a harsh flash of light. The brightness disoriented me, forcing me to shield my eyes. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust, but my surroundings were a blur. "What is happening?" I muttered, my voice trembling. Gradually, the light dimmed, revealing a familiar figure. It was Elizabeth, but she looked different. Her expression was strained, and her eyes held a deep sadness. "You came," she breathed, relief washing over her. "Elizabeth." I stepped forward, desperate to reach out to her. "What is going on? I need answers." Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed behind me. I spun around to see the operating room door swinging wildly, the darkness from the corridor pouring in like a thick fog. The whispers intensified, nearly drowning out my thoughts. "Help us!" It was a chorus now, mixing with the sounds of the chaos outside. I felt the panic rise in my chest. I turned back to Elizabeth, her calmness seemingly unfazed by the turmoil. "Stay close," she said urgently, her voice barely reaching me over the chaos. "We have to find them. They're all trapped, just as I was." "Trapped? Who?" I demanded, glancing back at the door, a sense of impending doom creeping in. "What do you mean?" "Patients. The ones I couldn't save. They need you to listen." Her eyes pierced through me, pleading for understanding. I felt a chill run down my spine. As if sensing my hesitation, the whispers grew louder, sharper. "Help us! Help us!" The urgency of their cries cut through me, pushing me to act. "All right," I said, steeling myself. "What do I need to do?" "Follow me," she said, and just like that, she began walking toward the back of the room. The whispers turned into a pulsating hum, drawing me closer. I hesitated for a moment, but her gaze was unwavering. I took a deep breath and followed, each step heavy with apprehension. We moved toward a small, unmarked door at the back of the operating theater. "What's behind here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's where they keep the records. It's that simple." She paused, as if weighing her next words. "But it's dangerous. I can't promise you'll come back unchanged." Before I could respond, the door creaked open, revealing another dark corridor. The air felt cold against my skin, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I could feel the presence of many unseen eyes watching us from the shadows. "Elizabeth, I don't know if I can do this." I stammered, uncertainty flooding my mind. "Trust me," she said softly, "if you're brave enough, we can finally set them free." Her voice resonated with an intensity one had never heard before. Just as I gathered the courage to step through, a piercing scream echoed from the corridor behind us, a sound filled with despair and rage, freezing me in place. "Elizabeth!" I gasped, fear flooding my senses. "What is that?" But when I turned to ask, she was gone, vanished into thin air. The chaos around me intensified as the door slammed shut. I was left alone in the dim room, the screams mingling with the whispers. "Help us," they urged once more, each plea wrapping around me like a tightening noose. I had a choice to make, and time was running out. I stood in the dim operating room, heart racing, surrounded by frantic whispers. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. "Elizabeth!" I called again, but there was no response. I could only hear the echoes of the unknown. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to run, but the voices were compelling. "Help us," they pulled at me, demanding attention. I glanced around, searching for any sign of Elizabeth or a way out, but that door was firmly shut. With a deep breath, I hesitated for a moment longer. "Fine," I muttered to myself. "Let us see what's behind that door." I turned and stepped toward the unmarked door at the back of the room. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob, cold under my palm that I pushed it open, and the chill hit me like a wave. The corridor was a narrow trail of darkness. I could barely see a few feet ahead, but I stepped inside, driven by the pleas of the unseen patients. "I'm coming," I whispered, though doubt crept alongside me. The corridor's walls were damp and unwelcoming. Shadows danced, flickering at the edges of my vision. I pressed forward, every sound magnified in the still air. Then, a faint light appeared at the end of the hallway. As I moved closer, the whispers grew louder, almost forming words. "Listen, please." My heart raced. I reached the light, which flickered from a small room off the corridor. I pushed the door open. Inside, the walls were lined with charts and files. An old desk was cluttered with worn medical tools and crumbled papers. I could see names scrawled across folders, patients long forgotten. But one file caught my attention, brighter than the rest. It was partially open, revealing the name Daniel Mills. Something stirred within me at that name. I took a step closer and grabbed the folder, feeling the weight of something heavy and unfinished. As I read through the details, my breath hitched. Daniel had been admitted under strange circumstances but had never been discharged. What happened to him? While I tried to process the information, a noise interrupted my thoughts, a soft shuffle from behind me. I spun around, heart pounding. "Hello?" I called out, voice trembling. But there was only silence. Then I saw them, shadows moving at the edge of the room. More figures, more whispers. "Find us," they echoed, their faces blurred, like mist trying to break through. "No," I shouted, backing away from the phantoms. "I can't help you." But the room closed in around me, the walls shifting. I felt trapped. The whispers grew frenzied. "Help us." The shadows pressed closer, their hands reaching out. I was being drawn into the darkness. That's when I heard another scream, but it was different this time, familiar. "Daniel!" I gasped. "Who is there?" Came a voice from the shadows. It was a desperate cry, breaking through the chaos. I turned, heart racing as I searched the darkness. I had to find him. I had to find a way out. But just as I took a step forward, the light flickered violently. Then everything went dark. I felt cold hands grasping at me, voices swirling. My heart dropped with the sudden sense that I wasn't alone. Something was with me in the dark, and whatever it wasn't here to help. I stumbled backward, heart racing wildly as I felt the icy grip of something unseen. Panic surged through me. I frantically searched for the door, but it felt miles away. The whispers grew louder, a deafening chorus pressing in on me. Help us, stop!" I shouted, desperate. I had to think. It was merely darkness. I wanted to believe that. But the hands kept clutching at me, tugging at my clothes, my skin. I couldn't breathe. That I closed my eyes and concentrated. What had Daniel said? Where was he? "Daniel!" I called again, feeling a surge of courage. "I'm here. I'm trying to find you." Silence fell for a moment, and I wondered if I had imagined it all. Then came the sound of footsteps, light flickered back to life in a dim glow, revealing a narrow passageway behind me. Relief washed over me, but as I turned, the shadows retreated like a tide pulling away from the shore. I dashed toward the light, driven by an instinctual need to escape. As I stepped into the corridor, shadows shifted around the edges of the walls, and goosebumps prickled my skin. I had to keep moving. I followed the light, my breath quickening with every step. The corridor twisted and turned, leading me back to where I had started. That operating room loomed ahead once more. But now, the door stood ajar, creaking softly as if inviting me back inside. A chill ran through me. I hesitated, remembering the shadows. But I needed answers. I pushed the door open wider, entering the room cautiously. The room looked different now, almost alive. The equipment seemed to hum, wires crackling with energy. On the operating table lay a figure, draped in a white sheet. My heart dropped as I approached. When I pulled the sheet back, it revealed a mirror. Instead of a body, my own reflection stared back at me, wide-eyed and terrified. I stumbled back, confusion swirling in my mind. What is this? Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder than before. Find us. The air thickened around me, smelling of antiseptic and decay. It clawed at the edges of my sanity. Then, in the corner of my eye, I caught a flicker of movement. A figure appeared, stepping forward from the shadows, a ghostly silhouette with familiar features. Help him, it said, voice strained and echoing. My heart raced. It looked just like Daniel. Daniel! I gasped. You're alive. But he only pointed down the hall, urgency etched into his face. You have to come with me, it's not safe here. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed through the room. I turned back, eyes wide. The shadows surged forward, writhing like a tide of darkness, the whispers turning into frantic screams. Help us! They cried, and I felt the room shake. My pulse quickened. I had to choose: follow Daniel or face the shadows. Now, he urged, desperation in his tone. That look in his eyes left no room for debate. I took a step toward him, my heart pounding, but just before I could reach him, a hand shot from the darkness, grasping my ankle. I screamed as I tried to shake it off, and that was when I saw it. Something was lurking in the shadows, something with glowing eyes and a sinister smile, watching me. "Help us," it whispered darkly, the room spinning around me. The darkness swallowed me whole, but I still felt Daniel's presence pulling me toward the corridor. I kicked at the shadowed hand gripping my ankle, adrenaline surging. With one final cry, I broke free and lunged toward the passageway. Daniel was waiting, eyes wide, urging me forward. "Come on!" he shouted. The shadows writhed behind me, their whispers shifting from despair to rage. I sprinted past him, my heart thundering in my chest. The corridor twisted, taking unexpected turns, as if it were alive and guiding me away from danger. I glanced back and caught a glimpse of the creature. Its grotesque smile sent a chill down my spine. I couldn't let it catch me. I couldn't let it pull me back into the darkness. "Where do we go?" I panted, skidding to a halt at the junction of two dark passages. Both ways offered uncertainty. Daniel's face was pale, the familiar confidence replaced by fear. "Left," he gasped, pointing. "That way. It leads to the stairs." We dashed into the left corridor, the shadows still clawing at our heels. The whispers grew frantic. "Help us! Help us both!" they cried, echoing against the walls. I couldn't understand what they wanted, but I didn't have time to ponder it. Panic flooded my every thought as we sprinted, my lungs burning. "Why are they after us, Daniel?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "They want something," he murmured, glancing back nervously. "They think we can help them." But before he could finish, we reached a door marked with a rusty sign, "Stairs." I pushed it open, and we stumbled inside, the dim light flickering from above. "No!" Daniel shouted suddenly. I turned to see the door was already shifting. A dark figure pressed against it, its shape changing as though it was struggling to break through. "Go!" I screamed. We raced up the stairs, 2 steps at a time, the creature's growl reverberating through the air behind us. I felt the heat of its breath as the door splintered. The walls felt too close, the wind from below cold and menacing. "I can barely hear you," Daniel shouted, his voice strained with panic. "What did you find in the operating room?" "It wasn't real," I gasped. "It was a mirror. Just me staring back. Something is wrong here, something they're not telling us." His words were frantic. The stairs ended abruptly, leading to a hazy light filtering down from above. My instincts yelled for me to keep going. We burst through a final door and emerged onto the roof, the night sky stretching above us. But it wasn't peaceful. A figure stood under the dim flickering light, a silhouette surrounded by swirling mist. I squinted, trying to see clearly. That's when I noticed the familiar coat it wore, the same one Daniel had the night he disappeared. "Daniel?" I whispered, taking a hesitant step forward. The figure turned slowly, a chilling smile creeping across its face. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the truth. The figure wasn't my Daniel. It couldn't be. "Help me," it croaked, the voice barely recognizable, yet achingly familiar. I felt my stomach drop. I took a step back, but it was too late. The shadows leapt from behind me, engulfing us both, hungry for something I didn't understand. And I knew with certainty we had just uncovered a secret meant to stay buried. I felt the shadows wrap around me like a suffocating blanket. The figure in front of us blended into the darkness, its eyes glinting with a haunting familiarity. I found myself torn between the horror of what I saw and the desperate hope that this was still Daniel somehow. "Stay back!" I shouted, pushing Daniel behind me. Fear coursed through my veins, tightening around my chest. I didn't want to believe it, yet I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that I had crossed a line. The whispers grew louder, pressing against my mind, a cacophony of demands and pleas. "Help me!" That voice echoed all around, bouncing off the brick walls like a taunt. It was a voice I recognized, but it wasn't right. I took another step back, dragging Daniel with me, my heart racing. "Is it you?" I asked, my voice wavering. "Are you really there?" "It is me. I can't come back without your help." The figure's mouth moved, but the words felt twisted in the air, distorted by the shadows swirling around it. "No!" I shouted, shaking my head. "Not like this." Daniel clutched my arm, trembling. "We have to go. If that's not him, we can't help him." Before I could respond, the fog thickened, curling and twisting as it congealed into the shape of a hand, reaching for us, clawing at the edges of our sanity. Panic surged in me like a tidal wave. "Run!" I yelled, turning back toward the door. We sprinted back the way we had come, the shadows snapping at our heels. I could hear the whispers again, now pleading, "Come back. Help us." As we raced down the stairs, I could feel the air shift. The murmurs grew frantic, almost desperate, shaping into a singular cry that resonated in my bones. It felt like they were drawing energy from our fear, growing stronger with every step we took. "Why do they want us?" I gasped, glancing back over my shoulder. The dark figure stood at the edge of the roof, the light flickering ominously around it. "I don't know," Daniel panted. "But we can't let them catch us." When we reached the door to the stairs, I flung it open, nearly toppling down the steps. My heart raced as I stumbled into the dim hallway below, and a sickening dread washed over me. Then I heard a low rumble beneath my feet, the building trembling as if it were alive. "We need to find a way out," I urged, scanning for an escape. "We need to find a way back to reality." But as we moved deeper into the bowels of that hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were more than just a threat. They were part of something larger, something dark, and they were getting closer. "Daniel!" I started, but then a door slammed shut somewhere behind us, causing the lights to flicker and bathe the corridor in brief, alarming flashes. "Get moving!" Daniel shouted, urgency flooding his tone as I tried to process what just happened. The weight of what we had uncovered pressed down hard on me. Suddenly, I felt a rush of cold air, and with it came an overwhelming sensation that we weren't alone. "What was that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, as shadows flickered in the corners of my vision. That's when I caught sight of the flickering lights above us, and I realized it wasn't just the shadows to worry about. The whispers were closing in, their voices intertwining into a chilling realization. "You should not have come here." The echo of those words lingered in my mind like a warning bell as we raced into the dark, uncertain of what awaited us at the end. I ran, heart pounding, Daniel at my side. The hospital was shifting around us, the familiar creeping dread morphing into an unexplainable urgency. The shadows were impatient now, stretching, twisting, and angrily chasing every sound we made. Was it me, or did the whispers shift into something like laughter? Every corridor felt longer, every turn led to more darkness. But we pressed on, fear spurring our feet. "There has to be a way out," I murmured, desperately searching for a door, a window, anything that would lead us back into the light. With each step, the air thickened, like stepping deeper into cold, oily water. Just when hope was waning, we saw it, a small staircase, its metal railings glinting in the dim light. "This way!" I called, pulling Daniel as I dashed toward it. The stairs spiraled up into an unknown realm above. I could feel the shadows snapping at our heels, their whispers now a maddening chorus. There was no time to think, only to act. Up we went, 2 flights, 3 flights, until the staircase suddenly opened into a narrow attic space. The air felt different here, stale and dusty, but holding on to the forgotten memories of the hospital. For a moment, we both paused, breathing hard, scanning the room for any signs of life. "This isn't right," Daniel whispered. There's got to be a way out. I knelt down, brushing debris off an old wooden trunk in the corner. The shadows flickered near the stairs, their energy distilled into sinister anticipation. Inside the trunk lay stacks of papers, faded photographs, and files that seemed to gloss over the past. I opened one, squinting to read a name scrawled across it, Elizabeth Connor. The name sent chills spiraling down my spine, a connection to everything I had seen and felt just moments before. They're connected, I mumbled, half to myself. Who? Daniel asked. Elizabeth, the nurse from the photograph. She's part of this. The shadows thickened, angrily swirling around us, and I could feel their impatience rising. We need to go, I urged. Frantically, I rummaged through the trunk, hoping some documents, some final thread of information, would reveal how to break this spectral cycle. Beneath the papers lay an old, leather-bound journal. I flipped it open, and there it was, the last entry read like a confession. I can't help them anymore, the memories haunt me. I couldn't save them. Now, I'm trapped as they are. I felt the breath leave my body. Daniel, but before I could finish, a scathing roar echoed from the staircase below. The shadows writhed, their whispers morphing into anguished screams of, "Help us! Help us!" No! I shouted, closing the journal and shoving it into my bag. We have to escape. With one last glance around the dusty attic, I spotted a window. It was old, smeared with grime and cobwebs, but it was our only hope. I'll push it open. Daniel breathed, joining me as we both struggled against the frame. Finally, with one powerful shove, the window swung wide, unleashing a gust of chilly night air that sent our hair whipping about. Come on. I climbed out cautiously, Daniel right behind me. We clambered onto the roof, breathless, winded, but not yet free. Below, the hospital loomed like a dark giant, its very walls holding back the past we were desperately trying to escape. This way! Daniel yelled, sprinting toward the edge. My heart raced as I followed him, our legs pounding against the old tiles. We were almost there, a mere dive away from freedom, when suddenly that indistinguishable figure appeared before us. The laughter echoed again, but this time it felt taunting, like a cruel reminder of where we'd just come from. Run! I screamed, adrenaline surging through me. As we raced across the roof, the ground seemed to tremble beneath us. But that was the least of my worries. The shadows loomed large behind us, stretching long and dark as if reaching for something they were owed. Jump! Daniel shouted as he lunged forward. I didn't hesitate. I followed him without looking back, leaping off the edge into the cool night air, the ground rushing to meet us. We landed hard, rolling to absorb the impact, but as I gasped for breath, my heart sank. The hospital's shadow towered ominously above, its windows dark and foreboding. Had we really escaped? The whispers faded slightly, but the echo of "help us" still lingered in the air. Did we do it? Are we free? Daniel panted beside me, scanning the darkened building. I don't know, I admitted, feeling an unsettling ache settle in my chest. There was no explanation for what had happened, no closure for what we'd discovered. The weight of Elizabeth's words and those haunted voices clung to me still. We stumbled away, the cool breeze brushing against our skin. I'll never forget that hospital, what we saw, what we felt, an unending question lingering in my mind. I knew we'd left something behind, something that couldn't be set free, and even as we moved forward, I felt the remnants of their pleas echoing in my soul. As we walked into the night, my heart heavy, I knew I would always carry a piece of that darkness with me. I moved to a different town shortly after. Sometimes, I stare out at the streets and wonder if the whispers still linger in the shadows or if they had escaped with us into the night.